level, we go again. First and foremost, we do want to send our thoughts and prayers to the royal family. What an extraordinary day it has been. God rest the Queen and God save the King. But we're back to talk about football. Postponed games the weekend before last week, so yeah, no show. But business was once, and Arsenal top of the league. 3 points for the boys. Things are the same. But we're back to discuss it all. Plus our thoughts on Southgate's selection prior to the upcoming international break. Dale, how are we doing, my man?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you? You all right?
Yeah, good, mate. It's been a bit of an odd one for me because I've had 2 long weekends in a row, but I feel like I could do with another one. So I don't know what's happening there, but you know, we move. But yeah, can't complain, to be honest. Obviously, the good end to the weekend with Arsenal winning yesterday. Today's been a bit of an odd, I think. I think it was a bit of an odd one for everyone, just with what was going on and stuff. I think there was just a bit of a odd air in the room and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to work and going back to business, really, and just getting my head down. I think that's how people, sometimes a long weekend is enough just to want to make you get back to basics, you know, go and earn that bread. But let's talk about the games, because I know we were talking about England as well. And unfortunately, I'm going to start on Spurs because what a crisis for Leicester. I mean, I was looking on there, like, I was looking back on all the seasons they've had. There was obviously the season where they won the league, which was great. And then they had the dip where they finished 12th. I think it was the season they got rid of Ranieri. But since Rodgers has come in, he's consistently been in the top 10. So, you know, like, he's got high expectations, I guess. But it's been a terrible start to the season, and fuel was added to fire. 6-2 to Spurs. I mean, Leicester, if you're going to turn up, at least do it against them lot. At least do us Arsenal fans a favour. But yeah, Son answering his critics completely. To be honest, Spurs, look, I think Leicester were unlucky. I thought Leicester were the better team for a lot of the game. To be honest, from what I saw anyway. I thought like Leicester did play well, but they just haven't got the quality there to actually do anything about it or do anything with it. And Tottenham, they have got the quality in their team now, and they've got players off the bench that they can now bring on and turn things around. You know, Harry Kane getting a goal, adding to his list. He's trying to break the record of Alan Shearer with the most goals scored against one singular team. And I think he needed a hat-trick in that one. So thank God, you know, that's a trophy in their cabinet, I guess you could say. But Eric Dyer, look, for me, I'm never going to get the hype around him. He's had a good season, but I don't want him starting for England in Qatar. He capped off a good week. We'll give him that. He capped off a good week. And James Maddison as well. Look, he gave Southgate some things to think about. He had a great finish. But Leicester, what are your thoughts on them? I mean, for me, I think they've just got too many problems from top to bottom. I don't think it's just the manager. I don't think it's the goalkeeper. Even though Danny Ward is nowhere near Premier League level. But talk to me about your thoughts on Leicester and how you think they can change things around, because it's not been great, has it?
No, it's not been great, mate. To be fair, like you say, though, for the majority of that first half, they were knocking on the door, especially in the first half. They were, like you say, they were knocking it around. They were playing some good football. Obviously, they've lost a lot of players, haven't they? You know, they've lost Soyuncu at the back. He's gone. They've lost their goalie in Kasper Schmeichel. Kasper Schmeichel was one of the better goalies in the league. They've replaced him with Danny Ward, who, like you say, he's not a Premier League goalkeeper. You know, Jamie Vardy's now getting them sort of years where he's not going to, you know, he's not going to be a Benzema where he seems to get better as he gets older. You know, he's sort of come into the league, he tore it up for 3 years, and now he's starting to hit that decline. They've never really brought in anyone who's filled his boots, if you like. They've brought in Iheanacho, they've tried him, it hasn't worked. They've brought in Daka, tried him, it hasn't really worked. You know, Tielemans' future's been up in the air now for a couple of years. You know, James Maddison as well, who I thought, by the way, was absolutely brilliant against Spurs.
Yeah, he should have been on the winning team, really. Like, his performance was just brilliant.
To be fair to him, he's probably been the one out of all of the Leicester players that can hold his head up high and say, do you know what, I've actually performed, because he's performing in a really underperforming side. But also, you've got to remember the investment they haven't got when they won the league and stuff like that, they were buying players that no one knew, and they were turning them into absolute gems, like your Kantes, your Mahrezes, people like that. Vardy obviously coming in for next to no money and hitting the ground running, but their recruitment hasn't been that great in the last few years either. I know this season they've hardly spent anything. and it's proven that if you don't spend money, you don't compete. With the likes of City and Chelsea and in Arsenal, even spending money, it's even proved like with Liverpool, for example, they've not really spent a lot of money and they're not as competing like they were 2 or 3 years ago. And I think that's the same for Leicester. A lot of the teams around them, who you'd sort of say are in and around them, your West Ham's, your teams that are in that sort of level of the table, they're all spending money, and while Leicester haven't been. So I think Leicester are. Where do you go with it? Really, I think, do they change the manager? My problem is I don't think Brendan Rodgers is too good for Leicester, and I don't think that he's a manager that shouldn't be in that position. My problem with it is, who do they bring in that's a better, more experienced manager than Brendan Rodgers at this moment? I don't know if there is one out there who's Premier League proven. Like you say, he's had for the last 2 or 3 seasons, he was knocking on the door of being the manager who was going to break into the top 4. Leicester threw it away over the last sort of few weeks, the last season and the season before. They fell off a cliff, didn't they? But in terms of where people rank him,
fighting for top 4 at some point, weren't they? With you, I think it was.
So it's one of them. So do you know what he can do because he's done it before? But obviously, any manager who doesn't get given the resources and the funds and the backing, you're going to struggle. You're losing your best goalkeeper. Your Johnny Evans is now when he's into his mid-30s. You've got Soyuncu,
Soul Fofana as well. Like, where did that money go?
This is what I'm saying. So when you're a manager and you're losing your best players year in, year out, and the players that you're keeping are getting a year older, what do they really expect him to do? I do feel kind of sorry for Rodgers. I don't think he's the greatest manager in the world, but I don't really think Leicester will get better than him. So that's how I see it.
Tricky situation. Is the grass going to be greener? That's the only problem. As much as people can see what's gone on, what's gone wrong, I think if they bring a new manager in, there's still problems on the field itself. There is red flags, especially that back line. Like,
I think you got to look at the playing squad. If you, it's not like Fofana and Soyuncu are out injured. Fofana's gone, Soyuncu's injured, so it's not even like if he brings another manager in, say, oh, well, once we get the injured players back, this guy might have different ideas. He hasn't got nothing to work with.
Yeah.
His goalkeeper is. I mean, he's not even a championship.
I was looking at the other option they've got. Iverson, I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced. He can't be that bad. To be second best to Danny Ward, you can't be that bad. I know he was on loan last season, so he hasn't actually kicked a ball in the Premier League as far as I know. But blimey, you can't be worse than Danny Ward at the moment. Like, he's not showing any good, especially in that game against Tottenham. He was just all over the place. He looked a bit lost. And when you've got players like Ndidi making the mistakes that he was making, it's just adding fuel to fire, because Ndidi's one of those players you look at and you feel like he will carry the team. The likes of him, the likes of Maddison, Harvey Barnes, Jamie Vardy on his day, players like that, you want to step up, because if it's going wrong for them, they're the glue of the team. If they're not there, it all falls apart. But
I do think, though, some of their performances this season have been poor, but also some of their performances, they haven't got the results that some of the performances deserved. And I know against Tottenham, they were good for sort of 45, 50 minutes. And then obviously Tottenham changed it up and took the game away from them. But for 45 minutes, maybe possibly even just before the hour, they were more than a match for Tottenham. They were causing Tottenham all sorts of problems. I mean, Daka missed a great opportunity in the first half. Obviously, Maddison took his goal really well. So they're not. It's not all so bad as I know that they're sitting rock bottom of the league. They've got no wins on the board, but I think they've got more than enough quality with like the likes of Barnes. Vardy will still score goals, but just not at the rate that he would do normally. Maddison, Tielemans, Ndidi, Barnes, they're good. There's good players there. Dakarini and Nacho have scored goals in the past. They just need to get consistency and better numbers. So
they've done well to keep some of them as well, though, haven't they? Like Maddison and Tielemans looked like they was on their way out. I thought Maddison was going to go to Newcastle. I was very surprised to see him stay at Leicester.
That'll happen in January, mate. I think he's gone. I think he's gone. I think Tielemans is gone as well. He's only going to have 6 months left on his contract.
They're going to need to make some money where they can, aren't they? Because there's no point letting him go on till the summer.
And especially if they do continue losing and not picking up points, Rodgers will be gone, and then they'll have a new manager in who wants to then spend some money. It's just a very strange one that you sell Fofana for 80 odd million. You sell Cash, you get rid of Kasper Schmeichel. I know they didn't get a lot of money for him, but you still need to replace him. You've got 80 million there. Surely they could have gone and bought a keeper for 20 or 30 million and bought in another centre half for 20 or 30 million and still have change. You know what I mean? Just to help him. But the fact that they've done
It got to the
nothing.
point with Fofana where I just thought, surely you don't sell him now because you were knocking on the last, the 59th minute of the 11th hour. Don't let him go now because you're not going to have time to replace him.
Yeah,
And the inevitable has happened. Really, you get rid of players like that and you don't replace them. There's going to be huge consequences. Can't get rid of a goalkeeper like Schmeichel. Get rid of your best
that's
centre back and then just expect to go on as
yeah.
normal.
That's why I feel
Competition's too
sorry.
high.
That's why I feel sorry for Rodgers because it's like if you take out your best goalie, your best centre half, and your best striker's aging, and you've got no, and you get say I don't know what they got for Kasper Schmeichel in the end, but I know they
1
got
million, I
80.
think it was. I think it was just 1 million.
But even if they said to him, look, all the money we get for Fofana, you can buy 2 or 3 players with that 80 million. Surely they could have gone out and got some decent players just to bolster the squad and give him something.
Just to
But
get
they've given
depth, yeah,
him
just to have
nothing.
some sort of
Yeah,
options other than what
they've
they've
given him
got.
they've given him nothing, mate. So I do feel for him a bit, but at the same time, he's got to work with what he's got, and he's got to find a way quickly of getting results because he will be out the door if it doesn't turn
I
around
mean, I
quick.
was looking at their next games: Forest at home and then Bournemouth away. So for me,
Mate,
it's a 6-pointer or you're gone. It's got to be
yeah,
that case. And
if he doesn't take points out of that, he's gone.
yeah, and I know a lot of Leicester fans are probably hoping they do sort of. It's one of them situations where I've seen fans now say like, "Oh, can we lose so he goes out the door?" But they need to remember they are actually playing. Like you said, I think they were on. Like you said about the results that are not really ending up being the way they deserve. I think the Spurs game was that. I don't think they deserved to get hammered 6-2. No way.
No, it
And
wasn't
I
a
mean,
6-2 game.
until Son came on, it showed that on the field. It was quite back and forth. Just fortunately, Spurs have a good defence. Leicester don't. And then Son came on and done what he done best, put people to sleep. Absolute nonsense. I was reading the last few weeks. Spurs fans saying drop him. Okay, yeah, you've brought in Richarlison, but you can't forget what he did for them last season. Golden Boot, got them top 4 by a complete distance. And I say it every day. Son is the biggest threat they've got. I don't care how many goals Harry Kane gets. I don't care what record he breaks. Son has got a lot more in his locker. He's more of a danger to. He's more of a force to be reckoned with. Kane, you know what you get with him. Son's got pace. He's got fire. He's just confident. And I tell you what, it weren't just a hat trick in 13 minutes. 2 of those goals were just superb. And I looked at him and I thought, you're doing that. Like he did that with 2 different feet. One was with his left. One was with his right. Who does that? He is a magician.
I got
And
into a
well, mate,
debate on Twitter with a few Spurs fans because they were saying that, like you say, they were calling for him to be dropped, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing, mate. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He's an elite footballer. I know it sounds bad on Spurs fans, and they're probably not going to like me for saying this, but he should be at a better club than Spurs. Spurs should be lucky. Spurs should be counting their blessings at how they've kept hold of him. Not just this season, or like in the past 2 or 3 years. He's been their best player by a country mile. Kane's very
yeah,
inconsistent. Kane, he'll put in good performances where you go, oh my God, what a goal, wow, what a performance. But Son, especially the last season, every game he played, it was like, wow, this guy is unbelievable. He is. If he was at Real Madrid, everyone would be saying that he's one of the best wingers in the world. He is one of the best
yeah,
wingers. Not in the
yeah.
Premier League. He's one of the best left wingers in the world.
In terms of like how he stuck around as well, the loyalty he showed that
The
club.
loyalty,
Let's
yeah.
be honest, like he doesn't need to be that loyal. Tomorrow he could have anyone knocking on the door, and look, taking my Arsenal hat off, he's levels above anyone else that Tottenham have got, and I mean levels. And I think Harry Kane is one of the best strikers in the league. But if I'm putting Son and Kane in a conversation, I'm taking Son all day because he has he's more versatile, he's got more about him, and he's more consistent. And unfortunately for me, he's found some form creeping up to the North London derby.
Also though,
Surprise,
mate, as well,
surprise.
you got to praise his mentality and his attitude, because when you get dropped, you can go one or two ways. You can either sulk about it and throw your toys out the pram and cry about it, or you can do what he done, which was go on the pitch, score a hat trick, and say to Conte, "Don't fucking drop me again, mate." So I got you got to even praise that. I love him, man. I think he's unbelievable. I think he's a
Yeah,
brilliant player.
I think the thing is as well because he got the Golden Boot last season. That gives you a higher expectation forever onwards. Mo Salah can have one bad game, but because he's won the Golden Boot, that looks like 10 bad games to another player. So this is the problem with football now. If you hit a certain level, you're meant to do that forever and onwards, which is, to be honest, an impossible mission. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, if you're not Messi, it's not Messi and Ronaldo. They're only two.
You're asking for disappointment if you're expecting that son every game. But back in business. Certainly answering his critics. I don't think there'll be any more of Spurs fans asking him to be on the bench. Wolves 0, City 3. Your mate, look, Dale, your sour grapes. When are they going to stop?
Listen,
You've got to stop it.
I actually got vindicated in this because again, I had a bit of a back and forth with some City fans on Twitter after. I'm not denying the guy is an amazing finisher. Like give him a chance, it's ending up
outside the box. This one as well, isn't it?
No, and listen. He's adding it every time I slate him. He adds another goal to it that you go, okay, he can do it. But my point is not around his goal scoring or him as a player and him fitting into the City team and what he was brought in for. I understand he's a striker. His job's to score goals. City don't need him to do anything other than put the ball in the net. I understand all of that, and I completely agree. As a finisher, he is elite. My point is, in this day and age, especially in a Pep team and a Klopp team and a Conte team, being a finisher isn't what you have to be more than that. Look at Aguero, for example. When Pep got him, he got him running back, he got him chasing down the play, he got him, pressing from the front. My issue with Haaland is not as him as a player or a goal scorer. My issue is with if he doesn't score in a game, and there will be games this season he doesn't score in, what does he add to City? And no City fan can tell me what he actually brings to their team that makes them better other than the goals. And I completely agree. The goals are there. That's what he's brought in for. I understand that and I appreciate that. But when he's not scoring, does he improve their team? If you watch his overall play, his first touch isn't great. His hold-up play is not great. He doesn't really get into physicality with, like Drogba, Costa, them sort of players. He doesn't pin the defenders and roll them. He doesn't get assists. He doesn't. Do you know what I'm saying? It's that type of stuff. And I think it's probably more the football purist in me where you look at like the likes of strikers we've had in the past, like Suarez, Henry.
It's the comparisons, Drogba. Isn't it? It's the comparisons.
It's the complete package, and he's not the complete package. He's a brilliant finisher, and take nothing away from the guy as a finisher. The goals he scores are brilliant finishes. But other than that, I just expected a bit more from him. And it might come with Pep. Pep will work with him and improve his game in certain areas. But if you actually watch his game against Wolves the other day, other than putting the ball in the net, he did nothing. And I get that Man City fans. Well, that's
do you feel like that is a case of there just being other players to do it for him, though? Like,
possibly.
Say if you take away like De Bruyne, for example, he's been brilliant. He's been brilliant this season. No doubt the best 10 that there has been this season, without a doubt. He's just on fire. 6 assists in 7 games now. If you take him out of the picture, do you think that will perhaps make Haaland step up his game and show that he can do that?
Yeah, listen, it's hard to slate someone who scored the goals he scored but you've got to, like I say, he's playing in a team where he would arguably say, well, why do I need to do that? I'm still scoring, I'm getting the numbers I'm getting without having to do that. So, but it's just that when he came to the Premier League with the reputation that he had, I thought he was going to be an all-round, he can dribble, he can beat a man one-on-one, he can hold the ball up, he can flick it on, he can run in behind. I thought he'd have all of them attributes to his game. But he doesn't. He just had, not that we've seen yet. All we've seen is him be anonymous for 85 minutes and then pop up with a goal. And I get that that's a talent in itself. That it's like a goalkeeper when you say he doesn't do nothing all game, but then in the 89th minute he pulls off one save and it's the best save, it saves them the game. I fully appreciate that. I just want to see him. Like when you watch Mbappe, for example, he's taking players on one-on-one. He's on the right wing, cutting in on his right foot. He's taking players on. He's linking up with players, running in behind. He's doing his flicks and his tricks and stuff like that. I thought Haaland would be more like that. And I think it's probably where I've just looked at it and gone, oh, actually, he's just a big lad who sticks it in the net, which is his job. And I fully appreciate that. He's got blistering pace, but I just think that it'd be interesting to see in the games where he doesn't score, where you say, do you know what? He had such an impact on the game and he didn't get a goal. That's what I'm waiting for. When he can say, well, do you know what? His movement created space for other people to get in, or he won 2 headers that set up the goal, or he took on that player and pulled it back for De Bruyne to score this time. And you just see something different. But when I watched him against Wolves, the amount of times the ball come into him and the touch was bouncing off of him, or he went to turn and he stood on the ball, or he just did. He's quite an awkward footballer, isn't he? And maybe it's just that he's not as nice on the eye as like an Mbappe or something like that. And that's maybe where I'm looking at it going, well, as a fan of football in general, I don't take to that sort of player as much as I would take to like an Henry or an Mbappe, where they're a bit more silky and a bit more flary. So maybe it's me looking at it through that sort of lens. But listen, you can't take nothing away from the guy. He's a brilliant finisher, and I've never questioned the fact that he'll score goals. If you go back to the videos we had at the start of the season, I said this guy will score hatful of goals. But I just think that his overall game is not, is not what everybody giving him the hype for just yet. It might come, and I'm not saying he's not got the.
I mean, it's 11-7 now, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
you can't.
I think that's
our
record's definitely been chased.
You can't argue with his goal scoring. Listen, in that City team, he doesn't need to do anything more. And I understand that he doesn't need to be more than just a goal scorer, and that's the luxury he has. But I look at it, I think he suits City so well, because if you put him in Liverpool's side, for example, he doesn't score them goals, because the requirement of a striker in a Klopp team is you have to press, you have to be more than just a goal scorer. We've had you have to
be involved in the build-up as well.
This is what I'm saying. It's just I think he suits City because they've got so much quality in and around him that part of his game is, he doesn't need to really implement it as much. Whereas if you put him, like say Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, you put him in them teams, it's a different dynamic altogether. But City are so good, he can do basically what he wants. And if he scores, let's say 11-7 or whatever it is, who am I to talk to? Who am I to say anything? Yeah. But it's just my thought on it. That was all.
Well, and to be fair, another record broken as well. The first player to score in 4 consecutive away games. First Premier League player. I don't know about other leagues. But yeah, look, I get what you're saying. And being an Arsenal fan, I'm always going to put Henry above and beyond any other striker, because he just brought different things to his game. That is the level that people expect him to get to, I reckon. That's
my point. I think that's what it is with me. I'm looking at it from a football purist, and what I like is your Suarez, your Henry, your Drogba, your Diego Costa, that type of player where even if they don't score, you go, oh, what a game that guy had. What a game. The way he bullied the defenders, the way that he held the ball up or he flicked it on. And with Haaland, I don't see him do any of that other than you go, oh, he scored again. But then if you watch the rest of the 85 minutes that he's on the pitch, apart from that 2 or 3 minutes where he scores the goal, you don't really see him doing an awful lot.
I do get where you're coming from. Like if I watched the Wolves game back, I would know that he wasn't the best player on that day. I know other players stood out, and the only reason he was really spoken of was because he scored again, and because he's been scoring. However, De Bruyne was better than him on the day. Foden actually had a really good game. Grealish got a goal. He made himself a bit more known to the game. He was a bit more involved. There's a lot of people there. This is the thing, he's surrounded by so much talent. He doesn't necessarily need to do everything at the moment because he's got other players too. In a couple of years' time, 2 or 3 seasons when De Bruyne is on his way out, this could all change. He might need to step up that game, and by then he probably will have done. But I do agree with what Lee said. I think he is like rewriting the football dictionary for a number 9. I think he's bringing that description back to what a number 9 should be and what a number 9 should be doing. But yeah, look, Wolves away, it's never an easy game. And for me, this is just showing the competition that us teams are up against this season. Arsenal, people can sit there and say we're title contenders. You go and watch City and you completely change your mind because you're just looking at them and you're thinking they are ridiculous. But you know what? Competition.
Just on the Wolves game, right? There was a period in the first half before they went 2-0 down. So they went 1-0 down really early. Before they went 2-0 down, they had a 5 or 10 minute spell where they kind of pressed City and they got a few opportunities. It wasn't clear cut opportunities, but they got. I think Podence had a goal, a decent shot saved. I think Neto missed a good chance where he didn't. I don't think he got it on target. But then they retreated back, and then City just took over. And I think what I want to see from teams when they play City is, and I think this is one of the reasons why Liverpool have done so well against them in recent seasons, is because you press them. As soon as you press them, they are good enough to get out, and you do have to run the risk of being caught because they are good enough to beat you on the press. But when you can nick the ball off them high on the pitch, around like sort of Rodri or the back 4 when they push up to sort of just before the halfway line, you get a lot of joy, and they do make mistakes. We've seen this season how many goals they've actually conceded from team like Newcastle when they played them. They played so well. They got 3-1 up and then they retreated back. As soon as they retreated back, City went boom, 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 2 goals straight away. You've got to be able to maintain a high press against City for the whole game. And that's where you'll get joy. If you just sit back and give them time to pop the ball around, you're asking to get slapped.
Yeah, I mean,
I just want to see managers
the red
be a
card
bit
didn't help
braver.
either. What a brutal challenge from Nathan Collins, by the way. Great start for him. But I think for me with Wolves, they just need to hit the ground running. I think they've got all the talent there in the attack, but they just haven't started scoring, so they haven't boosted their own confidence. And to me, I think the inclusion of Diogo Costa will be a good lift for them. I think someone like him coming into that team is exactly what Wolves need, because they've got Neto, Podence. I love Podence. I've always rated him as a player.
They've got a lot of nice footballers where, like you say, they're technically very good. They're very silky and very smooth. But you just need someone at the end of the day who's going to run for a brick wall and score.
You just need a powerhouse through the. You need a powerhouse through the middle.
Someone who's going to just rough
start
people
scoring
up
goals. And start
one of
telling
them
people
ones
what
where
to do.
if you put it in the ball, it just comes off his face or his knee and it ends up. Do you know what I mean? Someone like that where they're not
shithousery goals sort of thing. Yeah,
he's perfect for them. He really is. If he can if Costa can rediscover any sort of the form we saw at Chelsea, even if he's not probably not going to get 20 goals, but if he can get 10 goals from in all competitions this season, and he can give them that physical presence up front, someone who, when the ball goes up to him, it sticks. He can hold the ball up. He can try and bully the centre halves, rattle the centre halves, put them under pressure. Then I think he'll be all right. And he's so different to what they've had before. So I'm quite excited to see. I like Wolves as a football club. I like their manager. I like their team. I like their players. And I just think like you say, they just need a bit more bite and a bit more nastiness about them. And I think Costa will bring that.
And they've got a hell of a midfield as well. So just adding Costa to that, it's going to be problems. But yeah, this was a result that I was surprised at. Newcastle won, Bournemouth won. Look, I did my fantasy Premier League. I was looking at the fixtures and I was like, "Oh, Newcastle, time to triple park." Get everyone in, get Isaac in, get everyone. And it just didn't happen for them. Obviously, Newcastle though, they've got a lot of history with Bournemouth. Eddie Howe himself, Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser. It's like a ticking time on the back and forth. But for me, I just thought the Bournemouth goalkeeper had an unbelievable game. I think that's all it was. And I didn't actually know about him. I was looking at who he'd played for and stuff, and then I heard on Match of the Day that Neto had played for the likes of Valencia, Juventus. He's actually a really experienced goalkeeper. But what do you think about Bournemouth? Because obviously they started off really badly. Surprisingly got rid of Parker. But I mean, the grass could be greener, right?
It just goes shit. I was a real. I slated Bournemouth when they sacked Parker. I thought it was disgraceful, mate. I really did. I wanted them to lose every game from that point, just for the pure fact that I thought Parker was so hard done by. But however, weirdly, they've actually picked up since he's left.
Yeah, 4 points out of 6, and they've not had the easiest of games either. Like against Forest, they came back.
They were 2-0 down against Forest, weren't they? This is, I'm telling you, I mean, it just goes to show you, doesn't it? If you get a new voice, new ideas, you never know what can happen, and that's why Rodgers is in, like we touched on in the beginning, that he's in that sort of shark pool where if the shark bites, it's either going to be make or break. They could either get it really right or get it really wrong, but at the minute, you have to say Bournemouth are getting it really right because they're picking up points. So a point away at Newcastle now is a bloody good point for anyone.
Yeah. I think anyone would take that this season. I think Newcastle, I think St James's Park is definitely going to be one of the toughest places to play this season, without a doubt. But yeah, I mean, Newcastle did throw absolutely everything at them. And to be honest, their goal came from a penalty. So that says it all for Bournemouth. But yeah, Neto made some great saves to prevent that. But it's a good result from him. It was a well taken finish from Philip Billing, and I still don't think the grass is going to be much greener without Scott Parker. I think these are two good results, but I think you've played Forest, you've played Newcastle, you've got a good result there. Next time round, okay, they've got Leicester in the next 2 games, but I think soon they'll start feeling like, okay, this is the proper, this is the proper league. This is what we're up against. They'll get a wake up call massively.
Thing is, mate, if they didn't spend much in the summer, so if they can get to the January window and be, in and around 15th to bottom, even if they're bottom, if they can be within 2, 3, 4 points in January of the teams above them or in and around them sort of teams, or 2 or 3 points ahead of the teams below them, they can spend a bit of money in January, and who knows, they might give themselves half the chance. I do agree with you. I do think the bubble will burst eventually, and it only takes 2 or 3 tough. They could end up playing, like, I don't know their fixtures, but let's just say they get a Tottenham away, Arsenal at home, City at home, and all of a sudden they're on the back of three losses. All of a sudden the morale changes, and it can change the outlook of stuff. But at the minute, you have to say fair play to what's his name, Gary O'Neill, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fair play
Yeah,
to him.
he's putting a good name out there for himself, And like we were just saying with the whole Rodgers business, there ain't many manager out there at the moment to come and step in. So if you can make a good name for yourself and keep a good thing going, yeah, why not? Why not keep him in charge? Because who else is there? Who's the competition? But yeah, look, 2 points lost for Newcastle, I reckon, because they've at the moment they've been sending a message that they're this new team rebuilding and they want to be up there again. They want to be amongst the top 6, the top 8. Results like this, they'll want to be winning them 2-3-0. Isaac getting off the mark at St James's Park, so he'll be pleased. But yeah, we were just talking on Forest and their comeback to them. What is going on with Forest?
Too many players, mate. We said it at the start of the season. When Fulham done it, they did a similar sort of thing. They started off pretty well, and then all of a sudden it just collapsed. And I think that's what's happening. There's too many players trying to integrate 23 or 24 players.
You need to be an incredible good manager to do that, don't you?
Too much,
you need
mate.
to be. I think manager of the season level. If you did that, if you managed to put an entire team together, finish in a good enough standard place in the Premier League, I think you're up there, because it's impossible when you're up against the teams that are in the Premier League at the moment. Look how high the competition is, right? Look at all the teams that are going to be down there this season. At the moment, West Ham are somewhere down there, and then you've got teams like Fulham that are playing above expectation. Like you don't know where you fit in, and then meanwhile you're having to put all of this together. It's
any manager will tell you, or any players that play will tell you, there's the thing that players like the most, the managers like the most, is consistency and having rhythm and working with you get your spine of your team for a good 2 or 3 seasons, and then you build around the spine of your team with different players that offer different things. Trying to do that whilst competing in the Premier League with 23 players, trying to find out what they're good at, what they're not good at, who you can trust, who you can't trust. Mate, it's too
not
much.
Just that as well. The players that he's actually got to work with, I still don't think they're good enough level. Like you look at Gibbs White, don't get me wrong, promising talent, probably looks the best of their bunch at the moment, the way he's playing. And he seems like an important player. However, him, Ben Johnson, they're sort of players that they're not going to step up quickly enough. And then you got to work and put it all together anyway. It's going to take too much time, and I think they're just going to get left behind.
They're gonna be one of them teams, mate, where they win one that you don't expect them to win, and then they lose 2 against the ones you should expect them to win.
100%. They're going to go and get a good result somewhere, and then it'll be a case of this where they're back to square one.
Yeah.
Like letting slip a 2-goal lead against Bournemouth at home, and then they're at home to Fulham. They're 1-0 up, and then they're losing 3-1. Stuff like that. You won't get away with it. You're going to get found out. It's a massive concern.
I actually think that if it doesn't go well for them, he'll get sacked, mate.
Yeah.
No matter how well he's done for them, if it continues with any manager who gets 5, 6, 7 losses on the bounce, or if it was to get that bad for Forest, he'll be gone, mate.
And the problem is I don't think there's enough of a excuse for him now, because they've invested. They've just brought in more players than what I've ever seen a club bring in. So he can't sit there and say,
do you know what the problem is?
I haven't got this.
Do you know what the problem is sometimes with the Premier League as well, is that owners look at it and go, the only way we can attract a certain type of manager is by being in the Premier League. And if we don't pull the plug while we're in the Premier League, we're never going to get a level of manager that we want if we drop back down. So that's why I think a lot of owners, when they look at it and they get to January and they start going, we're struggling here. I think that sometimes they go, yeah, but I've had an inkling that a top manager who's been in another league, we could get him in. We'll get him in now, because if we get relegated, he ain't coming. So I think that that's sometimes in the owners' thinking as well. No matter how well he done from last season, Northern Forest shouldn't be in the Premier League, because they weren't. Yeah. They shouldn't be there. They're living them. I
think this was the point. A lot of people wanted them to come up just for the case of like the away day, and just for the fact they've got history in the Premier League, and it's massive for the team. But realistically,
They shouldn't be there.
they shouldn't be there.
That's why
They've
they
got
signed
way
so
too
many
much to do.
players. That's why they signed so many players, because their team would have been pummeled every week. So they
I
had to
think a lot of their
sign.
players were on loan as well, weren't they?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they were
Be
basically
interesting.
starting from square one.
Be interesting. Like I say, it's still early enough for them, so if they get their act together, they can pick up some results. We've seen them; they can. They've done it this season. They've picked up good results. So they've just got to find a bit of consistency and find their. He needs to find his, 7 or 8 sort of bankers that are his first name on his team sheet, and then fill the rest of the squad with the new players that he's brought in. But I think it's just
Because at the moment he's just testing the water, isn't it? Like,
chopping and changing each week.
Yeah, he's starting Awoniyi and then he's not, and then he's starting Ben Johnson over him instead. I think he needs to just get some sort of shape, figure out what he wants to do, and just stick with it and work with it. Because in this game, there's no room for that. There's no room to just keep
Also
making
seen
these
as well,
decisions and changing.
there's been different tactics that he's used. So some of the games they've played, they've pressed really high with like Lingard and people like that. Then in other games, they've retreated back. And then there's been other games where they've sort of done neither nor. They've sort of done an in between where they've sort of sat in, pressed for 10 minutes, then sat in. I think they've just got to, like you say, figure out the tactics that best suit the players that he's got. Find a team and a spine of players that he thinks is his, the people he can rely on, and then try and go from there. But I think he's a little bit torn between how tactically they approach different teams.
Yeah.
So, like I say, time will tell.
It's an unfortunate one because he seems like he's done a lot for him, especially last season. But yeah, I feel like the inevitable is going to happen. I think they're just going to keep crumbling, and unfortunately, he's going to pay the price because he is the man in charge. Although it's a job that not even Pep or Klopp are going to walk in and do straight away, because you're working with things you don't know.
Yeah, it's a poison chalice for him. It's like he's either going to do what he done last season, which is thrive under the pressure of being there and trying to do something that, let's face it, we all shouldn't actually do, or he's going to just crumble and he'll be out the door.
100%. Aston Villa 1, Southampton 0. Look, Steve Gerrard. I'm still a bit
big result.
It's a big result for them because they needed a win. They needed something under their belt. Like, you could see how much it means to him. But my point was, it shouldn't have got to this stage where they're, fist pumping in the air over 1-0 wins against Southampton at home. Villa have got a quality squad.
Yeah, I think it was relief. I think it was relief for the players. It was relief for the manager. They needed a win. They got a win, and now hopefully he'll be hoping that breeds confidence. And I think that's all it is with Villa. I think that if you look at, it doesn't help when you bring it. You don't fancy Tyrone Mings. You drop him. You strip him of the captaincy. You buy a new centre half who's renowned as a top defender in Europe, and then after one game gets injured, and then you got to put in the guy who you've already told isn't good enough for your side. That's never an easy thing to do. However, they have underachieved massively with that squad. But I don't think you can blame just Gerrard. You see the mistakes that they make. Certain mistakes. They're not like you can see like players make mistakes. And that's not the manager's fault. Yeah, how can he help some of them mistakes? Like Tyrone Mings or Konsa dilly-dallying on the ball at centre half. I know that he will give them the instructions he doesn't want them just to lump it. He wants them to play out from the back, but there is certain times where, as a manager, you must think to yourself, how can I be at fault for that? Use your common sense. And I think that's where they are with Villa. I think there's a lot of talent in that team. I think McGinn's had a poor season.
They rely on him a lot as well, to be honest, McGinn. Yeah, I think McGinn is very, very I think if he's playing well, the whole team works. But I think
he's one guy.
It all falls apart.
One guy they miss when he's not playing is the guy that Luke's just mentioned, is Ramsey. Yep. What a talent that guy is. And I think when he doesn't play, he gives them so much energy and legs in midfield. And when he doesn't play, they haven't really got another midfielder who can do that. Whereas McGinn's a bit like a younger Milner. He'll battle and he'll scrap. And he's not really that good on the ball, but he'll battle, he'll scrap. He'll set the standard for everyone else in terms of work rate and attitude. Douglas Luiz, sorry. He's very tidy on the ball, but he's not really someone who offers much more than that. Just he's a tidy footballer. I think the new guy
played to Ramsey though. Look at who he's playing with: Douglas Luiz, John McGinn, and Coutinho.
Mate, he's such a talent, mate. He's such a talent, and I think it's a bit like, and I always bring it back to sort of Liverpool analogies, but it's like the Henderson factor. When he's playing Henderson, it's like you don't really mind Samachi sort of, yeah, okay, but then when he's not there, you're like, oh my god, we miss Henderson. And I think Ramsey's that for Villa. When he's playing, you go, wow, what a player. But then when he's not there, you're like, my god, do they miss Ramsey? And I think Ollie Watkins as well. There's starting to be a question mark over him for me.
Yeah,
he's got all the attributes to be a top striker, but he doesn't get the numbers, and he doesn't get. He's a bit
30 million paid for him as well. Let's not
yeah,
forget.
I think you look at someone like Ivan Toney. If you put an Ivan Toney in Villa, I think he doubles what Watkins scores in a season.
I think the thing is as well is Watkins always went like when he was at Brentford, he was the man that he was the man that everyone had lies on. At Villa, he's got Danny Ings. He's got to try and work with that next to him.
I'm
and
just
to be
not
honest,
sure
neither of them are living up to standard. But Danny Ings is
No.
getting old. He's getting on. So I'm not going to sit there and slander him too long because Danny Ings shouldn't be relied upon. He's getting to the point now where, yeah, look, he's getting game time and he's probably relieved. But he's not the player he once was. He's not going to hit you 12, 15 goals every
No.
season. It's just not going to happen, whether you've got the service or not. But yeah, look,
I think as well.
great result for Villa.
It's a bit of like we said with Forest is a little bit of. I don't think Gerrard knows his best 11, and I think he's still toying with because a lot of the time sometimes they set up with a diamond in midfield. Sometimes they.
So what
set
happens
up
when you bring in
as a
players like
4-3-3.
Bailey and Buendia though? Like, how can you put that all together? How does that work?
A lot of Aston Villa fans don't get the Coutinho signing because they feel Buendia offers what Coutinho offers, and when you play them both together, it doesn't work. I think Coutinho gets the nod more often than not because of his reputation as a better, more high profile player. But I think if you ask a lot of Villa fans, they'd like to see Buendia playing more often.
But you can't do. But I agree with that though. You can't do both. They're too similar.
No.
Like it just doesn't work. I don't think they connect together really. But
On paper, Villa's squad is a very good squad, and they are underachieving. But
I think it is the problem though. The
result.
fact that they've got too many players that do similar things to one another.
Very samey, yeah.
Very samey. They need players that bring a bit of something different.
I like Bailey though. I think Bailey looks good. I think he's been a bit hit and
still very young as well.
He's been injury prone since he signed from, so he's never really had a sort of full season. But I think he's got something a little bit different to the rest of them. He's a bit more of a. He reminds me a bit of like Rafinha, not as good as Rafinha, but that type of left-footed someone who
player,
can
what he does,
dribble
cutting
past
inside.
people.
Yeah,
I think he's got a bit of that about him, and I think that he could be key for them. But I also think that Watkins needs to pull his socks up and start being the striker that I think many of us thought and believe he probably can be. I'm just not convinced on him, mate. I'm really not. I think he's got all the attributes to do it. I'm just not sure if he's got the desire to be a top striker.
Yeah, well, look, Ivan Toney's done it. He's still living up to potential in the England squad. Well, other than what we're about to touch on in a minute. But talk to me about David Moyes. Everton 1, West Ham 0. Big problems for West Ham this season. They've finally signed a striker. Got a midfielder in as well. Got a winger. And then what is going on? They've brought in Skamaka, Cornet, and Crater. That's a great window, if you ask me.
Told you, mate. My mate, Uncle Ben's mate. He ain't what people think he is. I'm sorry. Their midfield for me is poor. Souček for me, he's not a good footballer. He's a handful when he's awkward and he's like remember Fellaini for United a few years ago. He reminds me of him.
Bloody hell.
He reminds me of that, but I just don't think their midfield balance is right. I don't like Fornals. I don't get Fornals as a footballer. I don't see what he brings to them. I don't see what Souček offers them. I know what Rice offers. Rice has got great athleticism. He's a good footballer, Rice. I'm not saying he's not a good footballer, but he's not going to impact the game from a centre midfield like a De Bruyne or someone of that ilk like an Odegaard or do you know what I mean? Someone who's going to influence the game. He's not that. He's a holding midfielder who break up play and he'll pass left and right and he'll pass backwards and he'll win headers and he'll run around, but he's not going to create nothing.
Do you think it's a case with him though, where he just he's brought these players in, someone like Lucas Paqueta, you got to fit him.
That's
in
the
somewhere.
creative, that's the creation.
Yeah,
that's what they brought. That's what they brought in. Yeah.
They've brought in Cornet, who looked good, to be honest. He was the best of a bad bunch for West Ham. He had a few chances. He looks creative, and then they've still got Declan Rice, who, let's be honest, as much as you want to say anything bad about him, he's not going to get dropped.
No, they've got no one
So
better.
you've got to
He's
fit
their best
Declan Rice
midfielder.
in. Souček is probably in there. Fornals is probably going to have to make way
I
somewhere
don't like,
for
yeah.
Bowen and Cornet. Like that's
But I think it's just a case
maybe
of.
he just has too much to work with, David
I
Moyes.
think
Maybe he just doesn't know what to do.
I don't think so. I think he's just a bit. He's a bit. He's quite loyal to the players that have done well for him already. I think there's a lot of managers who are quite loyal to players who they can trust, and I just think that like they brought in Antonio has done well for a number of years for West Ham, but he's never going to score you more than sort of 10, 15 goals in a season. I think 15 is his ceiling. You've paid big money for this Italian guy, and where is he? I know
Yeah.
he played in the Europa League games, but this. The
If it were me, I'd be doing the complete opposite. I'd be saving Antonio for Europe, and then I'd be
play the new
playing
lad.
playing Skamaka in the
I
league
mean,
because
all the reports from this guy was that he was one of the top strikers in Europe. That he was, he was. I think Arsenal were linked with him at one point.
yeah, we were linked with him.
Yeah, and and then you think of like they paid. I think they paid big money for him as well. I don't think it was cheap. It was
No,
like 40. Was it 40
40
million or
mil, yeah.
something? So this guy's coming in, and you're thinking, well, you're struggling for wins, you're struggling for goals, not just wins, goals. You're playing a poor Everton team, and you're not really. They didn't really create anything. I think they
Yeah, I think there was
dominated.
just two. I think Cornet had like two chances. That was it, and
Yeah,
then a
they
wasted header
dominated a lot
from
of the play
Souček.
in terms of box to box. They dominated a lot of possession, but they didn't really do anything with it. Bowen looks like a bit of a. He looks like he's struggling for sort of not. I wouldn't say he's struggling for effort and lacking in attitude or anything like that. He's just struggling for form. Um, I don't really see what Fornals offers. I don't really see what Side Rama offers. I think Cornet, like you say, Cornet every time he
That's
plays,
what I mean. They've got
he
four
looks
wingers.
he
How
looks well.
how do you work with Cornet, Benrahma,
Mm.
Fornals, and Bowen? How does that
And then,
work?
like
Like
you say
that's
as well, you're trying to incorporate Paqueta, who's obviously another big
and they're
money
trying to
signing.
incorporate an attacking midfielder into that. I think it's just too much on their hand, personally. David Moyes is a good manager, don't get me wrong, and what he's done with him over the last few seasons can't be ignored. But I don't want him
He's
to
in a
just
tough.
punch.
I don't worry for West Ham though. Weirdly, I don't worry
Yeah.
for them. I think they'll be fine. I think the new lad at the back, that Kera, the German guy they
Oh yeah,
signed, he looked quite good, looked quite solid.
big in the area as well. He's quite
I
big in the
think they've got.
box.
I think they've got enough. I think Cresswell's a decent fullback. Kufal doesn't
Yeah.
offer you a lot going forward, but
This
he's
is
a
a. I
decent
agree. I think
fullback.
this is a blip. I think they'll
They'll be
rise
fine.
back up.
They'll be fine. I
They
think
just
Moyes is
need. I think they just need a win under. They need exactly what Villa have just got. To be honest, get a win under their
just a
belt,
win.
and
Yeah, get confidence. I think
international
a lot
break
of
might
them
be good.
teams. I think a lot
International
of
break
them
might be good for
teams,
them.
teams like your Wolves, like your Newcastles, your Aston Villas, your West Hams, they're confidence teams. They take confidence when they're winning, and when they're not winning, I think they let their heads drop and they maybe don't believe in themselves as much. But I don't think it'll take much for West Ham. I think West Ham will be okay. I think they'll be more than okay. They're not going to be in trouble.
100%. And last but not least, I'm going to quickly whiz over the Arsenal game because I know that we want to touch on England as the international break is coming up. And there it is. Look, I'm not going to. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be one of these fans that gets too excited. But no
Get
one is
excited,
sitting
mate.
there.
No. Get excited.
No one is
Why
sitting. No
shouldn't
one
you?
is sitting there and telling me there is not at least two Arsenal players in the team of the season so far. No one can sit there and tell me because I'll argue with you until the cows come home. Saliba, what
Brilliant.
another brilliant
Brilliant.
performance from him. I don't think
Brilliant.
he's actually scored an own goal and he's still been one of the best centre backs in the league this season,
Brilliant.
minus the own goal. But yeah,
Can I just
great
say
little.
he was my player to watch, by the way.
Yep.
Just saying.
It was a good shout as well because
Class,
I
man.
thought they would. To be honest with
21
you,
years old. 21 years old.
the one thing I'll say though, Ben White playing at right back has given him more game time because I don't think he'd have been used as much as what he has been already. I think he's had to step in because Ben White is being used in another area, but it's good. It's a good
Doesn't
thing
matter, man.
because
At the end of the
yeah,
day, Saliba's come in, and if that he gets in any, he get right now as it stands, he
he's the
gets
first
in.
player not dropped. Yeah,
But he gets in every other team in the league, and that includes City and Liverpool. He starts for City and Liverpool.
that's
That's how
crazy.
good that guy is.
Yeah.
He does.
Look, for me, I don't want to put him on pedestals that he's not yet quite ready for because I feel like we've got October coming up where we play Spurs and yourself. So I'm going to look at that sort of game and I'll be like, right,
But
now's the big test.
you can't like. It's a bit like Haaland with me and what I said. You can't really judge him on things he hasn't done yet, and that's what I've
Yeah,
done with Haaland. And I should really apply that to Saliba because it flips the other way with Saliba. You can't. You can only judge him on what he's done, and all he's done is perform brilliantly. Same with Haaland. I shouldn't really judge Haaland on the stuff that he hasn't done. I should judge him on the stuff that he has done. So really and truthfully, if you look at it, Saliba's come in. He's given a new lease of life and competition to Gabriel and Ben White. They now know that they can't slip up because he's the number one on the team sheet now.
yeah, Saliba goes nowhere at the moment. The only fortunate thing for the other two is that we're about to hit a big run of games. And yeah, I heard in Arteta's interview, Saliba had one training game before that. He spent 10 days without training, trained once, and then started. And that's how he came in. But Luke's got a good point about the injuries. Obviously, I looked at the lineup and I was like, oh no. The first thing that hit my mind was Odegaard. I thought, right, this is interesting because he's been such an important piece of the puzzle. I thought,
he's been one
how's
of my
this going to work?
players.
And yeah, he has. He's been really, really good.
Players.
To be honest, he would probably, if it weren't for De Bruyne playing as brilliantly as what he is, Odegaard probably sits in there in terms of one of the best 10 so far this season.
I really like when you got him on loan a couple of seasons ago. You got him on loan.
Yeah,
and I saw him play.
Before last.
I saw him play a couple of games, and I thought, "Oh, this guy's good. This guy's good." He reminds me of Ozil, but he's got the work rate of Henderson. Do you know what I mean? He's got that. He's got the quality of Ozil.
Probably the most bizarre
do you know what
comparison
I mean?
I've ever.
He works so hard, and he's just as good as Ozil.
Yeah,
And
I do understand what you mean.
He's such a good player, mate. He's such a good player.
But yeah, for me with Arsenal, the good thing is now, the difference is now when we have injury problems, not everywhere, but we can resolve them quickly. Last season, an injury to our left back would see Cedric switching sides to the left.
You have to give Arteta praise because he got a lot of stick last season, especially in January when you didn't sign a striker, you didn't sign the players that the fans thought he should sign. But he's now gone out in the window, him and Edu, and bought the players in that you needed to strengthen in certain areas. You needed a central midfielder, he's got it. You needed a backup left back, you've got it. You needed a centre half so that you can have the option to push Ben White to right back. He's done that. All right, and I know Saliba's not a new signing, but you've brought him back from loan. You've brought in a backup goalkeeper because Leno was going. You've brought in a striker who offers you more than just hold-up play. So really and truthfully, if you look at Arteta, he's fixed every issue. I know that you'd say that obviously there would still like to be maybe one or two just for the depth, but if you actually look at it on paper, he's addressed all the things that were wrong last season and he's put them right this season. And you're reaping the rewards for that because you're winning the games that you should be winning. Do you know what I mean? Whereas last season you would drop points in certain games and you'd go, Arsenal should win that game. And you're not doing that so far this season. So far,
so good. Look, we've won 6 out of our 7, so I'm not going to complain. And the United game, there were some promising signs. It was good to see Kieran Tierney come back in. Look, the thing is with some of our fan base, and it goes with the same for Odegaard and Vieira, they can't compliment one without slandering the other or knocking down the other. It's good to have the problem we have at the moment. We have a lot of good players. Tierney being one of them. Tierney is not a bad player. He had a great performance.
Do you also, I think as well it is with Arteta, and there's repercussions now for if you don't play well. So, like last season when, for instance, Tierney had a bad game, there was no one else going to take his spot. Gabriel and Ben White. If they had a bad game, no one else was coming in. If Odegaard didn't play well, no one else was coming in. If Lacazette didn't play well, no one else was coming in. Whereas now, that's completely flipped on his head. Tierney knows he's got Zinchenko but breathing down his throat. Tomiyasu knows that now Ben White has proven he can play right back. Gabriel knows that Ben White can still slot in at centre half, so if he has a bad game, he's in. You've got Vieira now who comes in if Odegaard's not playing well. You've got Jesus, obviously, is the number one striker, so Nketiah knows I have to take my chance when it comes to me. I think the only issue I'd have is possibly Saka and Martinelli are the only two that maybe don't have the competition with, because Smith Rowe.
I think the thing is as well, Smith Rowe is apparently it's due to his growth. So Smith Rowe has had some injury problems due to his growth, which okay, fair enough. I can understand that he's young and his body's probably moving too quickly for what he's expecting. Zinchenko is a bit of a worry. I'm starting to be a bit concerned with what is going on in the medical room, because we've had 8 injuries now in the space of 6-7 games. So something's obviously going on in the air.
The football is coming thick and fast, though, mate. It's no coincidence that you started playing Europa League football.
This is what worries me, though, is the fact that we're picking up these injuries. Yeah, okay, it's good it's happening now and not in October, but we haven't even hit the peak of our schedule yet. We're about to hit it. What's going to happen then?
Liverpool started the season with 12 players injured. You consider yourselves lucky.
Yeah, to be fair, you've got a point. But one player I do want to talk on before we go into England is Xhaka. What a performance again. And Dale, look, you can sit there, you can argue, but this guy, he has answered every single critic. Redemption. It's absolute redemption for the last 2 or 3 seasons, I think it's been now. Fans have been on his case. Fans have said, look, Xhaka is not my captain. People wanted him sold last summer. In the summer window, people wanted him gone. They didn't want any sort of competition or replacement. No, they wanted him replaced, gone out the door. I've always said from day, we didn't need a replacement for Xhaka. We needed competition and some perhaps better players around him, and someone that can fit in next to him, like over Partey, because Partey's got fitness issues. I've said that from day one, and he's starting to put proof in the pudding. Phenomenal performance. The pass for the second goal was just a joke. That Jesus goal was just a brilliant assist. And then, Fabio Vieira, he's come in and he's done something that he's given Arteta a problem, because he's put on a good performance, he's got a cracking goal, and it's like, all right, but you've got to keep doing it now. Instead, I'm seeing Arsenal fans saying, Odegaard's not coming back in this team. He's a bloody skipper. Of course he is. He'll be back as soon as he's fit. Like, this is what people need to understand. Vieira is good, but don't make him run before he can walk, because he's still got a lot to learn. He's still only young. It's one game against Brentford, and I'm not going to give any disrespect to Brentford, but we battered them in that game. There wasn't one bad player. It was probably my hardest game I've ever watched and had to potentially give a man of the match for. I wouldn't have been able to call it if I was doing it professionally. But yeah, in my opinion, Xhaka was just above everyone else. I thought consistently he was good. The fact that Partey was back as well and he still managed to stand out. And this is the thing with Xhaka. He's had to work with a lot of different players next to him and he's still getting the job done. So far, all 7 games, he's been at least above and beyond.
Do you know what it is with Xhaka? It's because he's been so ineffective for so many years for Arsenal. He's been, the disciplinary issues, the way that he got, stripped to the captaincy. He's burned a lot of bridges with not necessarily just Arsenal fans, but the outside fans looking in. Nobody rates him. So now that the Arsenal fans are starting to see him in a different light and actually seeing what he can offer, but I also think he's one of them players where he's not really an 8, but he's not really a 6. He's sort of like a hybrid in between. He's not really someone who you can sit and defend and break up play, but then he's also not someone that's going to, like a Thiago, where they're going to dictate the tempo. He's a bit of a hybrid player for me, and he's a little, maybe, like you say, with the impact of Odegaard, Vieira, the fact that Partey's now back fit and you can offer him a bit more support and there's a bit more quality around him. Maybe you'll see more of Xhaka's better attributes coming out, whereas before you saw more of the negative ones and the things that he doesn't offer, whereas now you're starting to see maybe actually he offers a bit more than what we thought he did. So yeah, fair play to him. Listen, he's doing well, but Arsenal, it helps when Arsenal are playing well as a unit, as a team. If everyone else around you is playing well, it's easier for you to play well. Whereas if everyone else around you having a nightmare, you get dragged into that. So it might be a case.
That's very true. Like I said, in that game, there was dozens of names I could have thrown out there and said, like Toney, very good, Xhaka, very good, Saka, very good, Jesus finally getting a goal. He's not scored since Leicester, so I was pleased for him to get off the mark again, because that's what we want to see him doing, is scoring. As good he is in terms of the build-up, we want to see him scoring goals, but it's all working, and we've got big tests coming up in a couple of weeks against Spurs and yourself, so it's a good time for us to bounce back.
I'm going to the Emirates, mate. I'll be
meeting you before, and I'll just be saying, look, you know what's coming.
I'll be there. I'll be in the Arsenal end with my...
I'm gonna point you out, mate. I'm gonna be like, look at that Scouser.
I'll be there, mate. Singing.
Great performance from Arsenal. I do want to, before we wrap up, I want to touch on England very quickly, because there was some divided opinions. But talk to me. Where do you think Southgate got it right, and where do you think he got it wrong?
Well, let me start off. Two names that should be nowhere near that team sheet is Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire. No, it shouldn't be anywhere near it. If I was Ben White, I would be absolutely fuming. How the hell can Harry Maguire be anywhere near that? He can't even start for Man United in the Europa League, let alone starting for England in a World Cup. I mean, seriously, if we go into that game, into the World Cup with Harry Maguire, I'm sorry, you've got the likes of Ben White, who's playing brilliantly, and a team that's playing brilliantly. And I'm glad that Tomori's in. I'm glad that obviously John Stones is in. I'm glad that Eric Dyer's in. I think Eric Dyer deserves to have his chance back in the England team. And I think with England, you know what the most annoying phrase with England is for me? He's never let Southgate down. That phrase is exactly why England will never win anything. Because we've gone to 2 tournaments with the players who have never let him down. So what we're going to do, we're going to take them same players to the next one and then go, oh, he's never let Southgate down. They have let Southgate down. England's target is to win the World Cups and win European Championships. I don't care if you get to the final and lose. You didn't do what you set out to do. So we can all clap and say, oh, we're proud of them and this, that, and the other. We should be, if our target is winning, then we should be winning. And anything less than winning is a failure. If you say, oh, our target's the semi-final and we get to the final, fair enough. You say, we've overachieved. But the expectation is we should be winning. And to keep using the same players that we've used before and not won, that's just madness to me. When now that it's been another year or so on from the Euros, there's better players out there now than the players that he keeps picking.
I think Luke's got it spot on there as well. He's just sticking with his gut. He's just going with what he knows. But I think the 2 players you named, definitely the first two probably raised alarm bells for a lot of people, especially Man United fans. I think Man United fans would probably even look at it and think, okay, why are you taking them but you're not taking Sancho? It just doesn't add up.
Do you know what I would say is the Shaw one, obviously Ben Chilwell is going to be number 1 as a left-back option, but I don't think, if you look at elsewhere around the league, is there really another English left-back who you would say goes? I think that's why Shaw's there, and I can understand
they're all
that.
Just promising, really, aren't they? Like
you're looking at
Tyreek Mitchell's probably the next one I can think of, really.
I think that's the problem. I think the Shaw one is a lack of options. We haven't got the array of talents at left back as we have got at right back. That's the other thing I want to touch on. I think he's got to stop with this 4 right backs nonsense, because you're taking 4 right backs, or you're putting 4 right backs in the squad, and then you're only picking 5 central midfielders. That to me is a concern. I think you've got to nail down. I think you take 3 just purely because of, this is how I would look at it, is that Walker can play as in a back 3 and a right-sided centre-half, and he offers you that pace. And then you've got James and Trent who can offer you as the wing-back options. And then also if you play in a back 4, you've then got Trent, James and Walker, who all kind of offer different things, whereas Trent's brilliant going forward, James is a bit of both, and Walker's probably the best defensively. So I think that you can kind of take your pick depending on who you're playing. But I think 4 is too much. I don't want to see Trippier at left back because it doesn't work. For me, it would be Walker, Trent and James. I don't think Trippier gets in for me. But again, it's that saying of, Trippier's never let England down, and I understand all that, but he ain't better than the other 3. So for me, he doesn't go.
I think it's an experience thing with Trippier as well, is the fact that he has been around, but it's time to move on. It's time to make other people leaders, because if we just keep relying on them, we're going to be here till the cows come home.
I think and the debate around Trent and his defensive work, which is fine. If you don't rate Trent, don't pick him. Do you know what I mean? Why you don't want to play him? There's been so much said about that he doesn't play him, doesn't trust him defensively. Then why pick him? Don't pick him. Because if he's just going to go and sit there on the bench and what does he offer an England team if you don't trust him defensively? Because England don't give Trent the freedom to express himself like Liverpool will. So if you don't trust him defensively, which I don't agree with, by the way, I don't think he's a poor defender. He's just having a bad time. But if you don't trust him as Southgate doesn't trust him defensively, then he shouldn't be in the squad, because the England are a defensive team. So it doesn't work. So if you've got James and you've got Walker, just stick with them 2 and then give yourself more options in midfield. 4, taking an extra 2 or an extra 1 right back, you're taking away from a striker or a winger or a midfielder that you can take. So for me, again, it's a weird one. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think with me, I think Shaw and Maguire I definitely agree with. I thought Connor Cody was a bit of an odd one. I looked at that and I just thought, I can't say I've been watching a lot of Everton because I know they've been playing well.
I think it's leadership. It's leadership. I think
Yeah,
it's
I think it is a
leadership
case
clearly.
of what I just said with the whole Trippier thing is
Yeah,
someone that can perhaps,
experience,
have a
leadership.
backbone, a shoulder for the
Do you
young
know what I think
boys.
as well in a World Cup? In a World Cup, it's quite good to have good characters in the dressing room as well. So he's not someone who's egotistical. He'll be a model professional. Like if he's not playing, he'll rally the other players who are playing. He's a good influence in and around the dressing room as well as being a good player. Cody's not a bad player, but I think that that's something that Southgate's looking at. That he's someone that will
I
encourage
thought
and
Ward
stuff like
Prowse was
that.
an interesting call up as well
Um,
because
I think he deserves it, doesn't he? I think
he,
he
I
offers
think
he
I
offers
think what goes
something.
in his favour is that he plays differently to a lot of the other players
I
that
think
can.
If Henderson was fit, you may not have seen him.
Yeah, I
I
think this
think
is it. I think
possibly.
he plays a
I
little
also
bit
think as well.
different.
There's a little bit of there might be a little bit of Southgate using these two friendlies to try and sort of the fringe players, if you like, or the players who he's not too sure on. He
Yeah,
brings them in to give just one last look
try
at
and
them.
cut some wood, I
Yeah,
suppose. Like he's
just
just trying to get rid
yeah.
of some options, see who's
Who
actually amongst the options,
Yeah,
and see who
I
he's just
think
going
he
to cut his
knows.
losses with.
I think he knows probably 12 to 15 definites, and then I think the rest is. I think it's a 28-man squad, isn't it? That he's taking, or is it 30? I think it's a 30-man squad this one because you can get 5 subs, so I think it's 30.
Christ.
So I
I
think maybe
mean,
he. I think he probably knows 10 to 15 definites, and then the other
surely
15
he can't
is
get it wrong then. If he's
well.
taken for,
I think it's
you'd like to
30. I'm
think he
sure.
can't
I'm
get it
sure.
wrong.
I'm sure. I read it was 30 because of the 5 subs rule, so they've allowed 2 extra players.
Yeah, there was just a bit of inconsistency there as well. Taking Sancho and not take and no, not taking Sancho and taking Bowen, stuff like that. Just I'm just thinking,
Yeah,
right,
I think you got. I
what,
think Sancho's got an argument, but I think the problem with Sancho is he's only been good for 3 or 4 weeks,
but
and
then
whereas
Bowen,
no,
who we just
Bowen is
mentioned,
yeah he hasn't. But I think
he hasn't had
I
a
think
great season at all. So it seemed like
yeah
okay,
I could get
keep
if
the energy.
if Sancho was in, I wouldn't be against it, but I don't think he's. I don't think him or Bowen are really. I don't. It doesn't really either or for me.
Yeah,
I'm not fussed really. They're not going
be
to
interested to
play.
see how Rashford does as well because obviously
I,
he's
well,
came in
Rashford's
like.
injured, doesn't he? Rashford
Oh
was
yeah, sorry, yeah, it
injured.
would have been
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, it would have
he would
been
have been in.
interesting to.
He would have been in.
Yeah,
Rashford. He would have been
it's
in.
a bit of a sad situation because he came in and then he'd scored. He came back into the United team and he'd scored. I think he scored 3 in 4 games or something. He scored
Yeah, he
against
was
us
on a good
twice.
run, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he scored
Scored against
against you.
Liverpool. Yeah.
And I was just thinking, right, now's your time where you're going to bounce back and become this guy, be born again. And now he's got the injury. This is his problem. He just needs to
Mm,
stay fit because he's up against a lot. I imagine he's going to be playing as a striker for England if he plays. So
mm,
he's obviously up against the likes of Harry Kane. And then there's going to be people amongst it like Tammy Abraham or Ivan Toney or
mm.
whoever gets in there.
Do you know what I think though? I got a feeling that as much as I don't agree with it, I don't think there's anything Ivan Tony can do that would make him that would put him on the plane. I really
Mm,
don't. I think
you just think the competition is too
it's
high.
too late. No, it's too late. I think Southgate is not somebody who's going to throw like a curveball where you go, oh my God, he's taken Ivan Tony. He's going to take players that we've seen before. And like what Luke said, he's very loyal to players that have played for him before. But that goes against everything he said when he became the England manager.
Do
He
you think
said when
this?
he'd pick players on form and he hasn't done it.
Do you think the same could be said for? We spoke of someone earlier who wasn't chosen, and to be honest, it's probably the one player I look at and I think, why are you not going? And it may be a case of the fact that there was a lot of competition in that number 10 role. James Maddison. Do you think the same could be
Mm,
said for him that it's just too late?
too late. I think Ben White and James Maddison are two that would look at this, look at not being picked and say, well, what more do I have to have done?
Hmm.
Madison's arguably been better than Ward-Prowse. He's been arguably better than Mason Mount. He's, arguably been better than Phil Foden. I know Foden's started to pick up in the last few weeks, but I think Madison would find it. I think he would be resigned now to say, if I'm not in this squad, I'm not going. I think Toney is one that I think he couldn't ignore just based on the fact that he comes off the back of a hat trick and started really well. But again, I don't see if Rashford being fit and Tammy Abraham are fit and Kane's fit that Ivan Toney makes it. For me, I think it's a bit too late for him unless he comes in these games and scores 2 or 3
Yeah.
goals and then he continues, banging 5, 6, 7, 8 goals between now and the break for Brentford, and it's almost like, well, you can't not take
I
him.
mean,
But
the problem we have is that it's less than 2 months' time until this election,
Mm.
and you're playing for a club like Brentford. It's not really going
I,
in your
I, I
favour.
s- I said at the beginning of the season on one of the first videos that we done, Southgate already knows that 11 that starts against the first game. I think, I don't know who we're playing, to be honest, in the first game ran, I think it is. I think Southgate knows that 11 already. I think the goalkeeping situation's up for debate as well. I think there's obviously you've got Pope, Ramsdale, and Henderson, but obviously Pickford's definitely going. So one of them three's dropping out. So it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see which one of them three drops out. I think Ramsdale's definitely number two. I think Pickford's number one. So I think the third spot is between Pope and Henderson. Personally, if it was me, I'd take Pope.
I think
Personally,
again, I think I'm going to say exactly what I just said in terms of who you play for. I think Dean Henderson's had hard luck because he's playing for a team that aren't playing well and probably are not going to be playing well in the next 2 months. So it's just, and he's not got a defence to cover him, whereas Aaron Ramsdale's got one of the most on-form
do you know? Do you
defences
know what I think as
so far
well?
this season.
For the one thing that I think is quite important to mention about Ward-Prowse and Toney is set piece and penalties. That's a big thing in tournament football, and you do need to have specialists in set pieces and penalties. So maybe that could sway Southgate's thinking. You know, the fact that we lost on a penalty shootout against Italy in the final.
Same
Is
could
it
be said
so?
for Trippier. Let's not forget that Croatia
Yeah,
win.
no, yeah. You've got a good point there. Trippier is a good set piece taker. I think the difference with Trippier is he's got a lot. He's got three of the best right backs in world football in front of him.
Yeah.
So it's not the same up front or in the midfield where we've got three or four sort of world class players. I would like to just touch on Jude Bellingham. That guy has to start for England. I don't want to see Jude Bellingham on the bench anymore. This guy's scoring against Manchester City away in the Champions League. He's playing week in, week out for one of the biggest teams in Europe. He's being one of the best players in one of them teams. He was arguably the best player on the pitch against Man City. The guy has to start.
So say we're 2 months in, first game of the World Cup. Give me your 11 before we go, and then I'll give you mine. And I want to see the differences.
This is what I think he will do. I think Southgate will go for Pickford in goal. I think he'll go with Reece James at right wing back. I think he'll go with a back three of Walker, Maguire, Stones.
Jeez, against Iran.
Yeah. And I think he'll go with a left wing back of Chilwell. I think he'll go with a midfield two of Rice and Bellingham, I want to say, possibly, but then he might go pragmatic and go Rice and Phillips like he normally does. And then I think he'll go with a front three
5-2-3. Interesting.
or it'll probably be a bit of it'll be like a 5-3-3, 5-3-3, 5-3-2 or 5-2-3, depending on whether we've got the ball or not. But I think he'll go with like the Chelsea mould with the two midfielders in the middle, the five at the back, and then three up front. And then obviously the three up front, I think, will be Sterling, Kane, and then take a pick of Grealish, Foden. Something along those lines, I think. Along those lines.
I forgot to touch on that. Grealish getting a goal, actually. Bloody hell. Yeah, but the thing is, for me, to be honest, I think that's right with what he would go with. I think Grealish will probably depend on form, but he's just coming off a goal.
I think Grealish will be a pick between him and Foden. I think it would be a flip of the coin between them two. I think Sterling's going to start. Kane's going to start. Rice is definitely going to start. I think John Stones will start. I think Maguire will start. I think Pickford will start.
The thing is, the decision's been made easier for Southgate now as well because Phillips is out injured, right? And I don't think he's going to be fit until World Cup.
He's touch and go. Yeah, he's touch and go.
So he's out. He's probably gone. By the time he comes back, if he needs surgery, I imagine that's going to be at least a month.
If Kelvin Phillips doesn't go, I would say that the two in midfield will be Rice and Henderson, and I think Bellingham will be on the bench. Unfortunately, that's not what I would do, but that's what I think Southgate will do.
Yeah, I agree with Bellingham though. I feel like he brings a different flavour to what Rice and what the others can do. So personally, I completely agree with that.
If it was me as a fan and wanting to what I want to see, I want to see a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. I don't want to see a back five. If it was me picking the team and like my team, what I would go with Pickford in goal. I'd go with Walker at right back. I'd go with Tomori and Stones at centre half, Chilwell at left back, I'd go with a holding midfielder of Rice. I'd play Bellingham. I'd play Bellingham and Foden in the middle. That's a free. And then I'd go with Sterling, Kane, and what would I put? I mean, you'd probably have to go Grealish, I suppose.
Yeah,
But that would excite me.
That's all guns
me.
blazing. That's
Against the Ram as well. You've got to look at the opposition. Against the Ram, I would like to see us go and
I don't
really
mean to be rude to Wales, but against any of the three opponents we've got in the group stage, go for it. I'd love to see something like that.
Alternatively, what you could do as well is you could take Grealish out, put Foden up with Sterling and Kane, and then put like a Mason Mount in with Bellingham and Rice, something like that. But that's what I would like to see, but I don't think that's what he'll do.
Southgate likes Mount as well. I feel.
What would you do? What would you do? What would your squad be? What would your team be?
4-3-3 probably. Just keep it standard, or should we say?
Who would you play? Who would you play? First game you ran.
I'm not sure about Kyle Walker.
Sorry, who would you tell? Who would you?
I think I'd have to go James. I think James is completely.
Who are you picking in goal? Pickford.
Yeah, at the moment, on fitness, probably Pickford. I don't think I'd put Ramsdale in there yet. I've seen a few red flags from Ramsdale. I love him, don't get me wrong, but I think Pickford, he paid his dues last year in the Euros. He made some heroic saves, and I don't think
he deserves another shot. Yeah, he would.
And even what he did for Everton against your lot, I think it was like some of the saves were just incredible.
Performances. Yeah.
So yeah, I'd go Pickford, James, obviously Chilwell on the left. That's no argument. In the middle, Stones and Tomori is an interesting one from what you said. I'd go Stones. I suppose at the moment it'd have to be Tomori because if you take Maguire out of that, I'd like to say Ben White, but it's a tricky one because at the moment he's playing. He's playing on the right. Yeah, and is he going to go? He's playing on the right flank at the moment, so he's out of position. So I do question if that has something to do with Southgate not picking him, because he's playing on the right back, so he's been considered as that. So I'd probably go Stones. It's a tough one. It'd have to be Stones and Tomori, just based on the fact that at the moment I don't think anyone else is going to live up to Tomori's standard. There's a few. It sounds weird, but there's a few skeletons in the dressing room. Dyer will be close to starting. I don't want to say Dyer.
Come on, who would you be? Come on, don't sit on the fence. Yeah. Come on, you've named your back four. Who else you play?
I think it'll be. I would go personally. Rice, Bellingham. I'd go Mount. I think I'd play Mount. So it's like a 4-3-3 attack in a way, and then Sterling, Kane, and I'm going to say Foden because I think Foden. Not too many different things really. I think Mount. I'd play a cam over.
That's what I want to see. More of a central, someone who plays in between the lines and can get the ball in the half spaces. But then again, would that impact Kane's game because Kane likes to drop into them sort of positions?
That's the thing. Kane plays as a 10 and a 9 anyway, so I don't really know if you'd need that attacking midfielder. But it'd be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how Southgate starts next week. To be honest,
I think there's 4 positions that he will be thinking about. I think it's right back. Who starts at right back or right wing back? Who partners Stones at centre half? Who fits in with Bellingham and Rice? And then who plays wide along with Kane and Sterling? I think they're the 4 positions that he's probably not sure on. I think everything else he's sure on. He knows he's.
For the record, if Maddison was going, I'd probably start him because I feel like he would bring it all. He hasn't played for England in many, many years, and he knows he's getting on. Let's be honest, he's not the youngest out of the lot, so he'd want to give.
Just touching on the players who didn't get picked, I know we've touched on Ben White and Sancho. Do you know who I was quite surprised who we didn't have a look at? And maybe it's just a little bit early for him, was Harvey Elliott. I think Harvey Elliott was in for a shout of, maybe not. I wouldn't say that he was going to go to the World Cup, and possibly because there is a World Cup, which is why he's not been in the squad. But I think he had a good shout for at least having a look at him, just to see if he offered anything different. I'm not for 1 minute saying that he's ready to go to a World Cup, because that's not the case. But I think from his performances this season, to be one of the best players in the Liverpool team, regardless of what the form we're in, I think that says a lot for him. And I was quite surprised.
He plays centre mid now for you, don't you?
Yeah, I was just quite surprised that I thought Southgate might have had a sneaky look at him. But
my only debate would be, I don't think he's got sharp enough elbows yet to play at an international level.
No, I'm not saying he has. I just thought maybe as an outside sort of wild card, possibly there was.
It's not a bad shout. I just think He needs
Bit early for him. Bit early for him.
he needs a lot more strength to play at the centre midfield level for England. You know,
Yeah,
that's
no,
a
listen,
complete
I
different kettle.
just wanted to see what you thought on it. There was a few people online
Not a
saying
bad
that
shout. I
they
mean,
wanted to see him. He offers
there's
something a
not
little
just
bit
him
different
either.
to the others.
There's a lot of players in the England under-21 squad and stuff like that you look at and you think, when are you going to start giving these people a chance?
Oh,
That's
do you
how
know
we
we
ended up
forgot?
with.
Mate, how have we both left Saka out of our starting lineup?
Oh my!
We've made an absolute clanger there. Would Saka not start? That 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 fo-
Over
that
Foden.
that Foden Grealish Saka debate is going to be a big one. But who starts alongside Kane and Sterling? I think it's Saka, Grealish, Foden. That's
I
quite a
think for
big.
me it's because I just wanted to keep him fit.
No, I forgot about him. I forgot he was in the squad. We've done a disservice to him there because he's in with a shout to start. So don't forget.
Yeah, I
Don't
mean,
forget Saka.
at the moment, I think the problem for me is the fact, going off what Southgate would do, it would be Foden or Grealish, I think, and then
Yeah, I
Saka,
think
and
I
then
think I
Saka
agree
and
with you.
Sterling would probably rotate on the left, because
Yeah,
from what I
probably.
remember
Well,
last year,
Grealish likes to play off the left as well, doesn't he?
yeah. So it all depends on who plays where, because at the moment, Grealish and Foden are starting together for City. So I don't know how
Yeah.
it's going to work with fitting
I,
them all in.
I personally think that Foden's better in the middle, in a midfield three rather than a forward three. Personally,
Also, I think Sancho's going to the World Cup, so
big
it's
shout.
going to be interesting.
Wait
It's
and
going to be
see.
interesting who's actually there. But Saka probably, Sterling, Kane, Saka actually maybe, yeah. Just for the sake, just for the fact.
Let us know what do people think. Let us know their
Yeah.
starting lineups in the
It's
comments.
a tough one because Saka and Reece James just raises a few red flags for me. I think that could all go Pete Tong down that.
Let's get everyone. Let's get it going on the comments and Twitter and stuff. And
Yeah,
see.
let us know who
Let's
you would
get
start for England,
Yeah.
the first game in the World Cup. But let's wrap up because it is getting late. Anyone that's tuned in, thank you very much. Make sure you smash that like button. Hit the subscribe if you're new to the channel. We're going to be back next week on Tuesday, as always. Happy bank holiday, people. Take care for now. See you later, guys.
Do not scratch your eyes.